And it was a great debate, great highlight. We had strong personalities who had a mind or views of their own as to how they thought we need to push the strongest political parties, as we've witnessed in our Fourth Republic, from their front line. We're talking about the MPP and the NDC. And so we had the minority parties debate, which started with the independent candidate, also making great input as to how they thought, if they had the reins of power, the affairs of this country should go. And so we again bring you a recap of the event. Then we will speak to a head of the political decks we have right here, JoyNews, Evan Spencer, do some great reviews and expand the conversation further as to what abodes for the future. Do take a recap.
At Asisawa, in the eastern region of Ghana, I'm a JSS2 dropout. I know most of you may wonder my business here as a JSS2 dropout. But let me tell you one thing. Ghana here, it seems most of us, we always go to school to learn how we can be able to speak the grammar, and after we successfully learning how we can be able to speak it well, we go back to the Englishman to come to plead with him to come and help us fix our economy. I think it is time we listen to some of us that we can be able to offer an alternative to fix the economy. That is why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mari Kofi Gan, your turn.
Good evening. My name is Mari Kofi Gan. I'm a chartered accountant, a development expert, and a lecturer. Every Ghanaian watching this today has one of the biggest decisions to make. And that decision is to choose someone other than the NDC and the NPP to be able to lead this country to a position where we can have one that works for all of us, not just a few. My intention here today is to be the one that leads this country in that regard. It is a decision we are all going to have to make, not just for ourselves, but for generations yet unborn. May God help us in that decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We join Dr. Thomas Vazum at this point. Your 60 seconds starts now. You have to unmute yourself, sir.
And a real estate appraiser.
The connection to Dr. Tom Asise. You have to unmute your microphone so we can hear you via Zoom. We'll try again. It appears the connection is not working to Dr. Tom Asise. We'll rectify that.
We will move on to our first substantive question. And I will start with Mr. Samuel Ofori Ampofo at podium 2. And question. The 1992 Constitution gives enormous powers of appointment to the president. Over the years, successive governments have been plagued with what has now come to be known as family and friends government. How would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion? Mr. Ampofo.
Thank you very much. Yes, we all know that since 1992, we've had the problem of the presidency having all the executive powers to control every sector of the economy. The president has all the powers to appoint more than 4,000 executives, and that has never been the right thing for Ghana. And if I am given the nod, I am going to run this country with minimum governance and save as much resources and funds as much as we can for our national development, so that we will never again go under the dictates of the IMF, borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. Never again under my leadership.
Mr. Kofi Koranteng, how would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion? Mr. Kofi Koranteng.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say it again.
How would you fashion out, same question, how would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion?
Okay, so our system of bringing people in is absolutely wrong, Evans. The first thing we need to do, we need to employ a director of public prosecutions, okay? Work directly with the Attorney General's office so they could oversee all crimes, everything in terms of process with the country. We need to employ also a public service commission who does the hiring of the police commissioner, hiring of the auditor general, and also the hiring of the electoral commission. And we need to have a stringent process where people have success models that we go by when people come in, so that they go by specifically that. And when you have a public services commission who is employed to do that, who's independent, they make sure that happens. And then you strip away the power from, of course, the president. The way you do that is once you get in as a president.
The time's up. Mr. Carlo Morgan, same question to you, 1 minute. How would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion?
Thank you so much. I am of the opinion that the 1992 Constitution has given so much power to the president. He appoints tons of people. And naturally, when you have such a power, you would like to bring your closest family. The temptation is so high. When I'm president, I'm going to review the Constitution, expunge the indemnity clauses, and these are things that we are talking about. I will propose that we have a president and who appoints a prime minister to run a government all over the place. That is what we know. In the French-speaking countries around us, we have that. So the power of the president will be limited to some extent. So when that is done, you make sure you bring people of high caliber. Meritocracy should be the order of the day. No matter what. If your brother is qualified, he goes on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Onipayodo Sumtai, same question to you, sir.
Hello. Okay, what I'll do is, I think when you read the Constitution, in Article 78, there are two offices. The Constitution created two offices, the legislature and then the executives. But Article 78 gives away that a legislature, the executive, which the president is supposed to take more of the cabinet ministers, the ministers from legislatures. So one person is having in two offices. I think that's the reason why we are facing this kind of nepotism. So what I'll do is I'll amend Article 78. So it separates the legislatures from the executives. I think that will help. This is my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Onipayodo Sumtai. This round ends on this question to Mr. Marie Kofi Gan. Same question. How would you dismantle the system and make it meritorious?
I can't say anything different from our manifesto, which is now public. One of the things we have said in that document is that even though the president has the power to appoint as many as the Constitution allows him to, one of the things that I have decided that we will do is to set up committees. It could be standing committees, it could be permanent committees, but committees that involve people from all walks of life, the professional sectors, the judiciary itself, and other elements of our society to put out names to the president, hopefully from Ghanaians home and abroad, to ensure that we break down that element of the president having to choose everybody that he knows. For me, this is a balance between the president choosing and the people of Ghana choosing.
Thank you very much. I would go now to Zoom and attempt to bring in once more Dr. Thomas Sise. Dr. Thomas Sise, if you had a question, how would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion?
So it does appear we do not have Dr. Thomas Sise at this point. So we'll start the second round with you, Mr. Kofi Kranting.
Before we do that, you have 30 seconds for rebuttals if anybody wants to take advantage of that. On this same question, before we move to the second round of questions, you have the floor. Rebuttals on the first question of demolishing nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion.
Absolutely.
You kindly put on the microphone.
It's on.
Yes.
Oh, okay, here we go. So again, like I was saying, so what you do is you're going to have a success model. The success model has to be followed. You have a public service commission that holds everybody to the success model. The president cannot come around this public service commission to make decisions as to who to pick. You have a success model, you follow it. If you don't meet it, you don't get in. And then when anybody goes outside of the public service commission guidelines to hire somebody, they pay the consequences.
30 seconds is up. Anybody else want to take advantage of this? 30 seconds for a rebuttal. If not, I have a question, quick follow-up. So again to you, Mr. Marek Kofi Gan, you say you're going to set up a committee and they will be responsible for presenting a list to the president to select from. You run a campaign. Campaigns are very expensive. There are individuals who would put in money into your campaign. And as they say, there's no free lunch. What's your policy going to be for those individuals who will run your campaign, especially in a country where we have the rules governing political party campaign financing isn't watertight, who will come around after you've been elected and demand favors, including putting their friends and others in positions of power?
I did start by saying that this is a balanced game that we're playing, and so there has to be balance. One of the things I want to say very quickly is that there is a balance between what I have said I will do in terms of putting up a committee and people who we already have identified who are professionals who qualify themselves to be put in certain positions. And so there's so many positions to get filled. I am saying there has to be a balance between those I bring on board and those that the Ghanaians choose.
Same question, follow-up question to Mr. Samuel Furian-Poffo. You started this off and you said you run a minimum governance. I think what you meant, if you clarify what that means exactly, when you said you run a minimum governance, just to quote you, what exactly do you mean by that?
Thank you very much. What I mean by that is, as we all know right now, the MPP government runs a government of about 120 or 10 or 15 ministers. I am going to run a government that will appoint only 40 ministers.
There, but we also do know that there's a lot of there was a lot of social media interactivity when this was being streamed, and even if you go to Facebook JoyNews on TV, you get a lot of comments also to the upload there. But we have to broaden the conversation further. And one of the moderators of this, the head of the political desk right here at JoyNews, Ivan Spencer, is joining us and will give us also what his own perspective based on his feedback and the observations as he monitored based on the questions that he asked, what the responses were of the various individuals contesting or likely to contest as independent candidates. And Evans, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Roland.
And what was some of the picking points, you can say, some of the points that you noted throughout those 2 hours that you moderated the show about these individuals who intend contesting?
Well, I got an impression, and when I was going into this, I was expecting to hear something different. I heard a few things different. For example, a lot of them, when we asked them the question which ministries would they do away with, some of them said, and that was really to my surprise, that they would do away with the sanitation ministry. I had not thought about it before because, again, sanitation is such a big problem in Ghana. And we've all thought about it as one of the problems that you needed to deal with if we had a dedicated ministry with a machinery behind it to fix it. But they thought that wasn't the approach, because almost every government has had a sanitation ministry. And if you look at it, they've had the sanitation ministries, and yet the problem persists. And they thought that is a ministry they will take off, they will do without. And so the follow-up question that my colleague MFA asked was, okay, so if you take away the sanitation ministry, what would you do? How would you still deal with the filth? And then they came up with suggestions such as they will put it under a department or allow the local government structures to deal with the problem, because the sanitation is a problem best addressed at the local government level, and removing the center problems that we have currently, because we have the sanitation ministry that then tend to dictate to the assemblies where the filth really is as to how to use the monies to deal with it. And sometimes the money then doesn't get there because the decisions about who gets the sanitation contract is being made at Accra, when of course the problem is known to the people at the decentralized level. I thought that was one of the interesting things that came up that I heard from them. Also, yesterday there were a few very interesting things. For example, on the free SHS, one of the candidates made a point that Ghana will like too many free things, and very soon we can expect one political party to come and tell us that they'll give us free wives, free girlfriends. That was said in a light-hearted conversation, but he made a very substantive point as well about how he would instead make tertiary education full fee paying, which I thought was very bold and daring to say in a country where any attempt to introduce a policy like that will agitate students and bring it and get into trouble. And yet he was bold enough to say, one of them said he's going to run a government of just 10 ministries. And I'm like, goodness me. And he went through the list of the ministries and thought, this is what my government is going to be. These are ideas. Whether they can actually do them, of course, we leave it to the judgment of the good people who watched last night.
There seemed to be a certain, I don't know whether refrain, of those who seem to gravitate away from the MPP and the NDC politics to always say the state of governance, when we have either of them in power, is always not the best for our country. But they don't seem to prefer some of the best solutions. And I got this from a lot of the responses on social media. Did you also have those cues as well?
I mean, so definitely. You get a sense also listening yesterday that the candidates, I mean, the aspirants, the independent aspirants, are acutely aware of this. And so their front isn't divided. And it came across very strongly last night that this is a bunch of individuals with some really exciting ideas who recognize that the two dominant political parties have taken over the space. Of course, I mean, since 1992, nobody else has won an election in Ghana if you're not NDC or NPP. And there is a sense in which, instead of tearing themselves apart, they should have a certain uniformity or something close to that in their thinking, so they could make a dent in the fortunes of the NDC or the MPP. And so a lot of the thought that they expressed were not necessarily divergent, opposed views. A lot of the thoughts agreed. And I have heard in the rumor mill that, in fact, they have formed a united front, and with the ultimate goal of coming together behind one of the candidates and choosing a vice from within themselves and putting one common independent face on the ballot for December, so they can rally and go around the country and campaign for the person and hope that that person will challenge and make an impact when it comes to the elections. And so that is themselves, and appreciating that these two political parties, they believe, have failed. And you heard a lot of that, particularly from Kofi Kranting, who kept on attacking the MPP and the NDC, and that the way forward is to come together with a unified alternative.
Well, I've also been joined, I beg your pardon, I've been joined also by Dr. Kwame Asasante. Excuse me. He is with the Political Science Department, the University of Ghana. And Dr. Kwame Asasante, you listened to all of them at this debate yesterday. One thing did come up, that as we've always known, we have a problem with our constitution. It's too much executive rulership bias, and also very much prone to the executive having their way all the time. But we also do know that it's a conversation that the two main political parties have toyed with while in opposition, but have always not been able to do something about while in power. Now, how do we take that discussion forward, especially now that it is agreeable among giving these independent prospective candidates that is the issue?
Morning, Roland, and good morning to your listeners. Let me say that I did not follow the conversation at UPSA yesterday, but at least I have an inkling as to some of the issues that they talk about. So I think straight away we can move on. Yes. Given the question you just slapped on my face, it is clear that the executive dominance of the political system is clear and beyond doubt in this country. One way that we wanted to deal with this was through the referendum, so that some of the powers of the president, i.e. powers to nominate or appoint people to become district chief executives and whatnot, that we will be able to take that and then reduce the powers of the president. But that did not happen. I'm sure that the conversation is not dead yet. We can still revive that and bring it forward so that that aspect, because we are going to take forward, if you look at the DCs, MMDCs, there are a lot of people. And if that power is given to you and I, as it were, we'll be able to reduce the executive powers. There are other aspects of the executive powers which the constitutional review touch on. I think we can go back to it and look at it and then address it head on.
Now, the head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, did indicate that in the rumor mill is the related conversation about how we could have the amalgamation of all these individuals, and they will be likely the kingmakers, so to speak. But we also do know that when you talk about the minority parties, they've not gotten more than 3% since 1992 at the polls. It's even been dwindling over the last 2 elections. So what are we talking about here? What can they do?
Yes, I think it's also another interesting aspect of the conversation. We have been doing some few projects in other media organizations, i.e. the TV3. And one of the things that we have chanced upon, or we have discovered, is that, and it's in line with what people are saying, the other parties, it is about time that they've got closer to one of the main parties if they want to be relevant in the Ghanaian politics. Why am I saying that? They have not, as you did indicate, they have not gone beyond 5%. On the average, since 1992, they have hovered around 4.47%. And if you look at the vote that they bring, our work recently indicates that if you want to look at the upper limit in terms of quantum of vote that they can, get for this 2020 election, they cannot go beyond 1.5 million. When you put all of them together, not even a single party. So you realize that their strength on the political plane is very insignificant. On top of this, if you want to push it to the stronghold, the swing region, where you want to see their effort at helping or, showing their presence in the swing region, they don't exist at all. For instance, one of our work indicated that if they really want to make a show in the swing regions for the 2020, the highest they could go is around 1,400,000 in terms of quantum of votes that they will get if you consider certain scenarios that we'll put across. So it tells you that this country, strictly speaking, is a two-party state where only two parties, the NDC and MDC, who have the political wherewithal to win power and form government. The other parties are nothing but what dwarf parties. They've been dwarfed by the dominant parties. So if they really, really want to make their presence felt in the political system, they need to tie up their apron strings with one of the political parties so that they can make a case. Because if you look at the dynamics, if you take their 4.4% out, then you are likely to have a winner at round one. That we are not going to have a second run-up. And the main issue here is that anytime parties, you have minor parties around and they perform within their average of what I have said already, the election is pushed into a second round. But once you don't have them, straight away you have what? A first-time winner of the election, and we will not have the trouble of going for a second round. Remember that anytime we go for a second round, these elections in this country is being driven by donor funding. Donors pay for most of our things that we do. So anytime we are pushing into the second round, then we are handicapped financially. We need to turn our attention to them for them to have a bailout so that we can do things. But that is not good enough, because the day that these donors will hold us to ransom, we are in constitutional crisis. So I think the conversation must move towards that direction as to what we do, the other smaller parties, what can they do so that they can also make themselves significant in the political system, and also to help the country from being pushed to second round where we need to cough up money and support the system.
Well, Evans, what's in the basket for this Imani JoyNews partnership with the minority parties?
So now that the independent candidates debate is over, there's going to be a next one. This is going to be the minority political parties debate. And the reason why we had to do this first, the minority political parties themselves are now in the process of selecting their candidates, etc. And of course, putting out a manifesto policy, because there's a strict criteria that Imani had developed for qualification to be part of the debate, and so we would have that. Definitely, also, we are not stopping in convincing the two main political parties to join a final and third debate between the two, the umbrella and the elephant, hopefully just before the elections. In the absence of that third one, we would have evening encounters with these two main political parties and their policy leaders to engage on some of the key issues going forward. I mean, for us, our theme for this year's election is simply to be useful to the electorate, and everything we could do, we can do, to be useful to the electorate and help them make an informed decision on the day of the polls on December 7th is what we'll do.
Well, I'll come back to you, Evans, for the last word. But Dr. Asante, for your last question before you leave us, these debates, how do they enrich the discussions in themselves? If you look at what has transpired in our democracy in the past, and then what usually happens also in the more developed democracies?
Yes, they are part of the equation. There's no doubt about that. We always listen to them with rapt attention to be able to see what is it that they have under their sleeves that they want to share with the general political system of the country. But we have seen that because of the the party system architecture, you don't feel their presence so much. I believe that Ghana must move towards a situation where we have to find a way constitutionally to see whether to either maintain them or let them align to the main political parties so that we can have a two-party straight away. But that is a tall order because it requires a lot of constitutional re-engineering as far as the architecture of the electoral system of this country is concerned. But it is a very interesting academic debate which is going to go on for a very long time. But for the players, we want to see what they bring to the table. And that is the smaller parties want to see a situation where one day somebody can come out very nice and convincing ideas that the public may want to gravitate towards that person to see whether there can be a change of the current state of affairs. That is my hope. But I'm not sure that we will get there because looking at what other parties are doing in terms of their performance during elections is nothing to write home about. So I believe that in no time, if they don't find alliances with any of the major parties, they'll fizzle out within the political system.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Kwame Asasante, political science lecturer with the University of Ghana Political Science Department. We'll let you hold on a bit, Evans. We'll be joined by Foli Kom, who is a member of the communications team of one of the prospective independent candidates, Mark Kofi Ghani. And thank you for joining me, Foli. Now, what's your own assessment of what transpired Thursday evening?
First of all, I'm a part of the media team, so that's the correction. Yesterday's event was a very good one, especially because it seeks to expand the narrative on political discussions and especially the political options we have given out to the people of Ghana. And we want to commend highly Imani and especially multimedia for coming on board, because most of the time what the listeners or the viewers have is they are limited to the options that the media presents. So yesterday's debate was a big step in the right direction, and we think there should be more of that in terms of giving more options to the people of Ghana, and so that everybody can have a varied choice, and then we can move on from there. So that is the first impression about the debate.
But it means your head or candidate or would-be candidate is looking forward to such related platforms, not only with other groupings, but especially this great combination we have, Imani and JoyNews.
Could you say that again?
It means that, or does it mean that your candidate is looking forward to such other platforms with us to make sure that he's able to articulate well his views?
Definitely. You know, because it's only when you engage people that you get to understand more of what is going on with them, and also you get to present options that are available from your end, so that they have the choice of choosing or understanding better what you have on the table. So definitely we're looking forward to more of these in different forms, with different groups of people, with different demographics. So it's a great thing.
Well, thank you very much. Folikom is a member of the media team for Mark Kofi Ghani, one of the prospective independent candidates, who also took part in this great debate, the Imani Africa JoyNews Minority Parties debate. All right. Evans, so we're looking forward to some other platforms as well. If the third one, as you said, doesn't take place, we're going to have individual encounters with the parties. How do we rope in the general public, really, in some of these, so that the questions then, perhaps maybe if we have some of them, could directly be put to the candidates in the first place, as part of this great coordination? I think that'll be it for now. But it's been some great time. We had some great individuals contributing to this debate. And if you get onto social media, those getting accolades, not by any sense of bias, Kofi Cranting, and then also Mary Kofi Ghani getting some great accolades there. But you will get more of these subsequently, this great analysis that we've just given you on subsequent programming right here on the channel. You also get the upload of the live event, of course, on JoyNews TV, our YouTube channel, and you can get all those links also on myjawline.com.